Well, hello, everyone. I hope you are having a wonderful, beautiful, lovely, cool fall day. We don't get very many of those cool fall days here, but we definitely have had it the last 2 or 3 days, and it has been marvelous. As you can see, I'm wearing a sweater and a scarf, which would signal that I need a little bit more warmth because I'm freezing in my office. But aside from that, I hope everybody's having a great semester. I'm sure that you are at the end of midterm exams and you're starting to recover and realize, hey, that wasn't so bad. I can make it to the final. And then I hope that you're getting engaged, as we really encourage students to do, because it's not all about what happens in the classroom. It's what you do on the outside of the classroom. So for those of you that are new, that maybe haven't attended a chat with the Grad Dean, I'm Monica Powell. I'm the Senior Associate Dean and Graduate Dean here at the Jindal School. And I have my favorite foursome here today, which includes Norma Rodriguez, my Senior Academic Project Manager. She's the one behind the scenes that makes all of the magic happen in webinars. And then I also have Angela Howard with us. She's our Assistant Director for Graduate Advising, somebody that I'm sure many of you get to know during your time here. And then, of course, we have David Widdifield. David is our Assistant Dean for Academic Operations here in the school, and he also teaches quite a number of ops classes in the program. So I'm really excited to have our audience with us today, and I hope that you'll share my comments with your classmates and other people that you care and love, and hope that they will use this advice in the right context, because I really think this is critically important advice for students. So what I'm going to talk about are the 4-letter words that will derail your success in graduate school. And actually, these 4-letter words will derail your career. They can derail relationships. They can be destructive. And I think you might be surprised as to what these 4-letter words are. And this comes from years of working in graduate management education and dealing with students who more often than not are coming to me because of a dilemma that they found themselves in, which could have been avoided if they had been mindful of the 4-letter words. So what might those 4-letter words be that students are a little bit guilty of either not paying attention to or paying too much attention to? So the first 4-letter word that will derail everything about your future and everything about your life is the 4-letter word read. It is unbelievable to me that in this day and time, there is just this aversion, reluctance, lack of patience, unwillingness to just stop for a few minutes. Be silent in yourself. Read that email that is in front of you. It seems like this device right here, where everything is entertainment and ticking, talking, I guess it's TikTok, everything is in these little short, easy, quick bursts. And if anything is longer than easy, short, or burst, there seems to be this notion that you don't have time for it. Don't bother me with a lengthy email. Don't bother me with a long syllabus. Don't bother me with a voicemail because I'm not going to listen to it. But it is important. It's critically important from now to the rest of your life that you be willing to stop and be accountable to reading, because students oftentimes make mistakes and miss important deadlines. And I'm going to have Angela talk in a minute about deadlines that students miss because they are unwilling to read a 1-sentence email that tells them about the deadline. And then I'm going to have Dr. Widdifield talk a little bit about how failure to read in the class situation can really come back to bite you and can have a huge consequence on your grade. But failure to read is not only about just your academic life. If you go into a job and you're unwilling to read an email that comes from your boss, an email that comes from a critical team member, an email that comes from HR, that too can have an incredible negative consequence on your life. So that's the first 4-letter word, read. Don't fail to read, because it can have huge consequences when you buy a house, when you buy a car, when you go to vote, when you're reading your homeowners association newsletter, when you're not reading the emails your teacher is sending you about your 4-year-old son. Reading is critical. It's a part of the rest of your life, and whether you like it or not, you need to embrace it. So what's the second? What's the second 4-letter word that I think derails people, not only in graduate school, but beyond? That 4-letter word is here. Here. You know, a synonym for here is listen. Because I think that, again, people are so busy and they're so quick and they're in such a rush that they don't slow down and really listen to what people are telling them. And if you listen, combined with reading, you will save yourself an entire day, week, month of agony. And if it's one thing that I see that students say when they come to see me is that they obviously were not hearing what their professor was saying. So suddenly they're in conflict with that, when if they would have just listened and or read, they could have saved themselves the aggravation. And again, I'm going to talk to Angela and to David about where does that trip them up in terms of things that happen in terms of completing your degree from a mechanical standpoint, and then also what happens in the classroom. But there's a third 4-letter word that I just have to talk about, because that 4-letter word begins with an L and ends with a Z, and that word is lazy. Now, the more proper, appropriate, professional synonym for lazy is to procrastinate. I think that people are living at the speed of light, and they don't slow down, they don't read, they don't hear, and they procrastinate, they are lazy. And then suddenly they realize, somebody who did read the email tells them something, or somebody that did hear the message tells them something, and all of a sudden, whatever it is that they were procrastinating about, being lazy about, is suddenly an emergency. And you can avoid all of those emergencies in your life by really being mindful of these 4-letter words that will derail you in graduate school, potentially derail you in your professional life, and quite frankly, can derail you in relationships that you have, whether it's your kids or your partner or your spouse or your good friend. And they are just 3 professional things that everybody has to practice. Practice reading, even if you don't want to do it or take the time. Take time to take your mind off of what's on your laptop screen. Pay attention to what the professor is saying. And then also not being lazy. Be on top of what are the important things that you need to get done. When you manage these things, you have much greater success faster, and you don't carry around this burden of shoulda, woulda, coulda. I shoulda, woulda, coulda read. I shoulda, woulda, coulda heard or hear. I shoulda, coulda, woulda not been lazy. So that brings me to you, Angela. What are the ways that students derail themselves in the advising office when they haven't read, they didn't listen, or they procrastinated? So can you give them some top ideas about that?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Powell. For the advising side of things, usually it's the deadline that comes into play when it comes to not reading, especially. The deadlines are always published by the university or by JSOM if it's a JSOM deadline. And if students don't read that deadline or not paying attention to that deadline, it usually comes really fast and they're surprised. And then they are upset that we say that we cannot process something for them because the deadline has either passed or it may not be processed in time because the deadline is either tomorrow or we're on the deadline. And that happens a lot when it comes to graduation applications. The whole point of going to school is to get your degree. But if the deadline to apply for graduation is, let's say, October 30th and you come on October 29th, that's not a good thing. Yes, you're before the deadline, but if you had 3 months to make this application to have it processed, you're actually not on time. You're late. So that is one of the biggest things when it comes to our issue would be the deadlines of things. And then registration, of course, is another big one when it comes to deadlines. The university has the deadlines online. So if If the registrar has already put that on the university the calendar, then we have to follow those. So when you come in, and unfortunately we are past the registration deadline for the full semester, we can't enroll you in a class. You see, oh, it's open. Everyone says it's open. Of course it's open because no one else can now enroll in it. So yes, maybe it is open, but we still can't bypass that deadline. So
Yeah,
really
and
for us, it's
students
all
always,
deadlines.
Angela, students always think, oh, well, you can make an exception for me. You
Oh,
can, my emergency is your emergency, so fix this for me. When you are going to a big school, we have to follow deadlines because if not, we would have just chaos.
yes, there are
So
10,000 students. So yeah.
10,400, almost
Hmm.
10,500 students in the Gendall school. So
Yes.
we can't, my dad was in the military, and I went to military schools when I was a kid, and they taught us in kindergarten an important phrase that we had to repeat like all the way through. And it was like, 15 minutes early, you're on time, you're late, 15 minutes late, you're in trouble. And you don't want to be in trouble when it comes to deadlines, which could have been prevented if you read or if you heard and if you weren't lazy. So, Angela, thank you. Those were, and we can't increase the amount of your refund. We can't
Oh
add
yeah.
you into a class when it's past the deadline. We
Hmm.
can't get you graduated if you didn't apply.
No.
So
So please
please,
early. Do it as
yes,
early as possible.
be
Anything on a
early.
deadline is late. Please
Yeah.
will say that.
Angela, those were fabulous.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Okay, Dr. Widdifield, tell us what happens in the classroom when students fail to read, when they fail to hear, and when they are lazy because they think they have all the time in the world.
Yeah, I mean, those are such incredibly powerful words, and it's amazing that we don't pay attention to those. Basically, what happens is that there is a lot of miscommunication that goes on, students assuming that they understand what the requirements of the course are, what the professor is asking for, and only to find out that after the course has been, or the assignment has been submitted, or the course grades have been entered, that it wasn't what they expected. And because they haven't gone back through and read the assignments, read the syllabus, engage in their team projects. Some of the things that many of the messages I'm getting today are, I'm having problems with these team projects. Can you guys just cut them out of the course? No, team projects are a part of life once you leave out of here at UTD. You're going to be working with people, and we reuse those to reinforce and prepare you for that success. It is just so critical to understand what those requirements are. And then oftentimes, as you know, Dean Powell, you and I get into that from the dean side with disputes on grades and performances. So that it's just incredible that you're absolutely right. We want everything in a very quick, easy to understand format, but at the same time, we do have to take time out of our busy lives and read through all of the requirements on each syllabus and each requirement and course requirement. I mean, back to Angela's point she just made, get that academic catalog, know when those dates, or that calendar, know when those dates are due, and when I have to register for courses. We're getting ready to open up enrollment for spring, and know when your dates are, when they're going to open up. I work very closely with Angela as well, and one of the things that we heard on fall is that, hey, I'm not, I'm coming in late, or this class is closed out. Why is this happening? Well, you had appointments set up, when it was going to open up, and yes, those courses got closed out very rapidly because, Dean Powell, you just mentioned, we have a lot of students here at JSOM. So I think that's the biggest thing is understand that. And even if you didn't take time to read it or to understand the first part of the semester, you're hopefully you're not in so much trouble that you can't kind of pull out for the last 7 weeks of the semester. So go back through the syllabus. I know many of the students in my course right now are going back through and saying, hey, I want you to please clarify, what does this requirement mean? And I'm at this grade now. What can I do to make sure that I stay in good standing at the end? So in addition to your 3-letter words, I want to ask one more. Talk to your professors, talk to your your students, peers in your teams, talk to them and let them know what's happening.
Yeah, I think communicating and failing to communicate gets people in more trouble, which brings me, by the way, to our 5th 4-letter word, since you just added talk. When students fail to read, fail to hear, are lazy, don't talk or communicate, then generally something goes wrong. And when it goes wrong, they come in and they say, I did not know.
Yes.
And failure to know is not your boss's problem. Failure to know is not your faculty member's problem. Failure to know is not the dean's problem. It's your responsibility to know. And if you do, if you take care of all the other four-letter words that we talked about, then you'll know. And I think that another big mistake that students often make is, instead of depending upon themselves to know, they depend upon somebody else to tell them, namely a classmate. And oftentimes those classmates don't know. And not knowing is not grounds for appealing anything, because that's the responsibility that you bear. Now, I'll tell you, when I was where you are in graduate school, I didn't have all these distractions of the technology that exists today. But it's a busy lifestyle, regardless of that technology, and it's hard. And you're trying to juggle all these balls, but that's part of being a new graduate student, a continuing graduate student, is to take the time and bear responsibility yourself, be accountable. And if you do that, then you will stay away from all of these four-letter words, these 5 four-letter words, and you will own a new 3-letter word, which is you'll win, because you'll be in the know. You will have heard, you will have read, you will have talked, and you will own those great outcomes. So I guess, I'm always looking for opportunities to share a little bit of our wisdom with all of you. And I call on all of you, just slow down a little bit. You have time. Just take a breath, slow down, read it, make sure you've understood it, turn your ears on and hear it to confirm it, engage in conversation, don't be lazy, don't procrastinate until the end, and you'll be in the know. So I guess, Norma, those are our 5 four-letter words for students, and we hope that they'll take those to heart and know that this is just really good advice coming from people that have a lot of experience. But I do think that we have some important deadline reminders from our advising office that we really want to have students pay attention to. So, Angela, you want to give those great reminders?
Yes. So I know everybody is gearing up for spring 2023, which is great, but fall 2022 is still happening. So please remember that the last day to enroll in any second 8-week class is the 24th of October. There really aren't many second 8-week classes. Probably just those final internships are being processed now. So that is the main thing when it comes to enrollment. And then if you would like to withdraw from a course at this point, you will have a grade of W, which is a placeholder withdrawal on your transcript, and there is no refund. But you do have some time. You have until November 7th, I believe November 8th, to withdraw from a class. If you're on a visa, most likely F1 visa, please double check with ISSO to make sure that you can drop a class. We don't want you to go under enrolled if you are dropping too many. But if you're having issues, I know Dean Powell and Dean Widdifield will say this, please reach out to your faculty now. Now is the time. It's still kind of late because we are now in October, but please reach out to them because if you're not doing well, we really want you to be able to rally at this point. You can find out what you can do, and hopefully you've just been talking to your TAs and your faculty already, but this is the time to do it now. And then for spring, like I said, we are revving up for it. So the schedule and your enrollment dates will come up. Oh, thank you, Norma. The schedule and enrollment dates will come up or will be active on the 24th as well. So the 24th is a big day. So on that Monday, you'll be able to see what the schedule will be for the spring 2023 semester, as well as what your enrollment appointment time will be. This is not a time that you have to come in to be enrolled. It is just the date and the time that you can enroll yourself in your courses. It will not be on the 24th. No one will have enrollment during that week. It's usually a week or two after, and you will see that time in your enrollment. I believe it's still called enrollment appointment in Orion, your Orion Student Center. So look for that on the 24th, and then you can just use the time you have before that to plan all of your classes. I always say have more than one plan. Plan one is always great, but if plan one doesn't happen because of whatever happens during registration, have a plan 2 or 3 or 4, just in case. Those are the main deadlines, Dr. Powell,
Wow.
that I have.
Well, thank you, Angela, so much for that. You guys are halfway through the fall semester. So there's a lot yet still to be done. Make sure that you manage your academic journey well so that you have the time and the luxury of doing the extracurricular stuff, because that's how you land internships. That's how you meet alumni. That's how you become engaged. That's how you make friends. And I think friends are really important. So we hope that, all of you are having a terrific semester. If for any reason you are struggling, number one, reach out to the faculty member in the class that you're having a challenge. Before you reach out to them, go back and reread that syllabus and all of those assignments and make sure you know what you're asking before you go in the door. Number two, if you feel like you need some advice beyond the faculty member, reach out to your program director or the program manager or the academic support coordinator. Those people have a wealth of knowledge in order to support students. So do that. And then always, if you're stuck and you just need to ask a question to somebody and you just don't know where to go, you can always send an email to jendal@utdallas.edu or to the JSOM question desk. And Norma will put those email addresses into the chat so that you can see those. And then, I love it when I go downstairs in the building and I walk through the building and students stop and introduce themselves. Everyone looks like they're just having a great semester and enjoying each other's company, being back in the swing of things as if maybe the pandemic didn't happen, but it did, because it seems like old times, and that's a really good feeling. So I want to thank Angela, and I want to thank David, and of course, Norma, who makes all the magic happen. Be in touch with us. Oh, we have questions.
We do have a question, one question here, and it's career related. The PS on this question is that Angela is incredibly awesome. So I'll go ahead and get that compliment out of the way. Thank you for whoever submitted this. But the question is as followed. Are opportunities for jobs and internships diminishing? Microsoft announced layoffs yesterday. Bloomberg economists forecast 100% chance of recession in the next year. And they heard yesterday about F1 students having job offers withdrawn. So they were kind of just wondering if you have any insight into that.
So I think that's a very relevant question. And here's my answer. I think there's going to be a lot of speak out there. We've got a major midterm election that is getting ready to happen here in just like 20 days. And I think there's going to be a lot of playoff in the news about what might or might happen to potentially benefit the election of one party over the other party. So even though we're starting to hear a little bit of rumblings about layoffs, I'm sure there will be a little bit of a resetting of the market. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But if you look at the unemployment numbers, for every one person that is unemployed, there are 7 to 10 jobs available for that one person. So even though there might be a resetting and a little bit of layoffs, I'm not hearing about that. I've not known any student, and I would know, that has had an offer retracted or taken back or taken away. I would be the first person to hear that because a student would reach out and tell me that. So yes, I do think that there's some rumblings out there about a potential recession. It's hard to tell. I'm not an economist, but you can talk to 10 economists and they'll each tell you a different story. But I do think that there probably is going to be a resetting. Do I think that's going to affect our students? I don't think so, because the numbers of students that are applying for internship is through the roof. It is through the roof. So if people were retracting, that number wouldn't be through the roof. So I think that you have to, as an adult, a grown-up, I think you have to ride the wave of what the market is. It's going to be up, it's going to be down. There's going to be people that use information to have a political spin, and you have to determine for yourself. And by the way, some of these really big players, huge players like Microsoft, they overhired because there was such a a difficult time to get people. So they had to overhire because of the Great Resignation. So some of that is a little bit of that resetting. That's Dean Monica's perspective. But I think we're still in a good time because I have not had a single student tell me otherwise.
Hey, Monica, if I can add to that. So
Sure.
I teach in the supply chain and the MAS programs or MSC programs, the internship course. And for fall alone, just to give the person who was asking that, I was just counting them up real quick while you were talking. We have 141 people enrolled in both the full 15-week course and the second 8 weeks course. That's 141 people that are in internships right now.
And look at our analytics program. It's massive.
Yeah, it's even bigger.
ITM program, massive. So, you know, students are telling me that they're getting 2 and 3 offers. So I still think it's pretty strong out there. And also keep in mind another, I think, really critical outcome, especially for a school that has so many STEM programs. Employers want technical knowledge. They want technical skills. They want people that can use the technical skills to solve problems. We have an abundance of those, and that's why employers like us, is because they can come to us and get a supply chain technically knowledgeable student. They can get an ITM one, they can get a cybersecurity one, they can get, you know, an analytics, data science, business intelligence, mining kind of one. They can get anything and everything they want here. So I think that makes us in a very strong position with the employment market right now.
Thank you very much. Those are all the questions that we have.
Wow. Well, thank you, Norma, for managing the chat for us. Thank you to Angela and David. It is always so much fun to talk to our students. And so I hope you'll take my advice on 5 4-letter words and how they can derail your career in the right spirit. And I hope you'll share that advice with your colleagues and your classmates. I think it's actually a national problem, and it's not just a problem with students. I think it's a problem regardless of your age. And I think we all have to slow down a little bit, not only to stop and smell the roses, but I think we have to slow down and really realize that information is critical to everything that we do. And if we don't have the right information, we're not likely to make the best decision for ourselves. So go out there, kill it on the rest of the semester. And we hope to see you guys in the hallway. Stop me and say hello, and have a great rest of the fall semester. Thanks, Norma. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, David. Bye now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.